Welcome to episode 4 of Across the Pond with Andy Davies from the UK and Adam Rose here in the US, your two favorite e-commerce recruiters. And today we're here to talk to you about how to hire the best e-commerce talent. So this episode is really for employers, for those that are hiring for e-commerce positions. How do you ensure that you're hiring the best e-commerce talent out there? What can you do to make your roles attractive? What can you do in the interview process that'll stand out? It's still a very competitive e-commerce talent market, even in the current environment. And I think being able to separate yourself from the competition, those other companies that are hiring out there, is critical. So Andy, what are your initial thoughts? How does a company do this? How are they competitive in this tight e-commerce talent market?
Yeah, so I think we kind of can break it down into a few phases of how you kind of, before you get to actually hiring for someone, what you need to be doing to be a desirable, destination for people.
Yeah.
So definitely there's a few points there, and I think some stuff that just comes up over and over again. And then I guess, it'd be good for us to get into actually the process stuff, which is maybe a little bit more generic around, regardless of some of that stuff is really regardless of who you're hiring, you need to be doing these things. But some specific to e-commerce as well.
Yeah.
So I suppose for me, the thing I would start with is the kind of the perception that a lot of people have that a role is of interest in and of itself just because of what it is or who you are.
That's right.
The big one here is probably, the amount of brands looking for Amazon account managers, whether it's, marketplace or vendor, to manage their Amazon business, and thinking that in and of itself is just people are going to be falling over to do that job, which maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that was probably a bit more, was probably truer.
But maybe they don't realize that every company now is hiring Amazon folks.
Yeah,
you need to.
There's no end. Exactly. There's no end of those roles around. And the best e-commerce people, I think this is a kind of point that's come up a few times in these discussions, the best e-commerce people are very curious, very eager to learn, always want to be learning something new. And, you have to kind of think, if you want to hire them, what are we going to be able to offer to those people? So just saying that, it's not interesting. So I guess if it's, for example, if it's an Amazon specific role, what are we doing with all of the different parts of Amazon? What kind of cool stuff have we done with them that we can demonstrate? Are we working with, what are we doing with Prime? What are we doing with Fresh, with the grocery side, with, the subscription part, the subscribe and save, all of those different things. So the innovation. And I guess that is then a wider point of, how innovative are you as a team and a business? And certainly I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. In the UK, if you look at kind of a lot of the consumer brands, they're all everyone knows each other who works within those kind of e-com teams. They're all based pretty much in the south, southeast, some up north, but mainly in and around London. And so it's quite insular, and everyone very quickly picks up on who's doing cool stuff and who isn't doing cool stuff. So even before you come to hire, majority of candidates that I would speak to would, certainly the probably more forward-thinking ones would always reference the same few companies they're doing something really cool, and I'd love to work there.
Yeah.
So
your brand reputation is really important. We've worked with companies that it had been very difficult to recruit for them because their brand in the talent marketplace had been so poor. They knew that these are the type of companies that you come in, they're going to make you work from 7 to 7, and it's just their whole focus is on getting things done instead of being strategic about it, taking the time to really be thoughtful about what they're doing and build a really solid culture. We worked with some clients that have just had a very bad reputation in burn and churn, just hiring people, churning them out, not really worrying about retention, and that does a lot of really poor things. Is Glassdoor very popular in the UK like it is here in the US?
I don't know. I would say it's becoming more influential,
Yeah.
but it's, yeah, you know, we still don't get loads of people who would cite it as a reason not to interview for something.
Okay,
You know, a
so we
couple,
do.
but
It's
yeah.
pretty popular here in the US. It may be because you don't have a lot of reviews for each company in the UK just yet, if they're not so popular in the UK. But here in the US, candidates will go to Glassdoor and check out your reviews and read about experiences from folks that have worked there, that are currently working there, that have interviewed for the organization. So you have to be very mindful of how your company is perceived in the marketplace, which may not be how you perceive it. And we see this a lot with startups, especially. Startups tend to think that they are just so cool that they received this first round of funding that everybody's going to want to come work with them, that they have a cool product, that they're a young, hip company. But that doesn't do it. That's not enough to get people to come in the door, to be interested in your opportunities, especially when these startups typically pay a lot less than other larger, more established companies. So why should somebody come in, take the risk in joining a startup? They're obviously not going to be as vested as you are as the founder or co-founder. So you need to come up with other reasons that they would be interested in this opportunity other than just the company itself, how cool you think it is, and what you think the future looks like for the organization. And that is in salary, that's in benefits, that's in perks, flexible work arrangements, which is becoming much more of a desired benefit than, you know, ping pong tables and beer in the office and unlimited snacks. So these are things that I think startups and even more established companies need to be mindful of if they really want to attract top e-commerce talent.
Mm. Yeah. One of the things I often think is a good kind of barometer is how quickly you've moved on from the last kind of hot topic within the industry. So a good example of this over here would be Unilever kind of did a lot of work actually with Cambridge University on hero imagery online. So for creating like better pack shots and imagery of products, because, you know, it was still, some brands are rubbish at it, but, you know, a few years ago, very hard to tell, right, what size is a product, or kind of what, using in-store imagery doesn't work.
Right.
So they did a lot of great work, and for a while it was, and it still is kind of almost the standard of how you optimize for mobile and for online across the digital shelf generally. But it got to a point where some candidates were saying to me, oh, they're like, I don't want to work for them because they're still like, all they're talking about is improving their hero imagery, and like, you know, you should have done that. You should have cottoned on ages ago, fixed it, moved on to the next thing. And actually, if you're only talking about that, it's like fixing the basics is the kind of catch-all term, I guess, for it. And like, yeah, if you're still doing that, you're definitely ruling a certain percentage of people out off the bat. So
yeah, top e-commerce candidates, they want to be working on really interesting projects, very juicy projects. And, you know, that could be things around like buy online, pick up in store, which is really popular right now and gaining steam. Or it could be, you know, things like future of e-commerce, which could be augmented reality or virtual reality. It could be machine learning algorithms, just a lot of really interesting, there's a lot of really interesting cutting edge e-commerce projects that people could be working on if the companies are investing resources into it. And you're not going to find someone at the top of their game that's going to want to come in and work on things, to your point, that they should have really nailed down 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think you're right. Good. What about the interview process itself? You know, the biggest pain point we have in losing good e-commerce talent is that the interview process itself is just brutal. And I don't think companies think about this enough. I don't think they plan ahead of time and really come up with a very good interview process that keeps the candidate engaged, that effectively evaluates them, and is just one that lands top talent. So what I see is that the biggest issue is that the interview process is just too long. And you can't have a long interview process in a competitive talent market, because these candidates are interviewing with multiple companies. And it's usually not the best opportunity that the candidate is taking, because they can't wait for the best opportunity. Usually the company that's able to offer the position to the candidate first wins, because the candidate already has one bird in hand, and generally they're not going to wait around for you. So what I find is that companies that make all of the stakeholders interview, so that there's multiple rounds, they're talking to everybody that they would interact with in this position, it becomes a really long, lengthy interview experience. And one that's very difficult, I think, internally for the company side to determine whether or not this person is the right fit for the role, because you're having to get feedback from every single person that interviewed. And one negative response compared to 6, 7 other people that they met with that had positive responses could kill that. And I think that's just not effective. And candidates want a quicker interview process. And that's everything from even the application itself. I posted on LinkedIn the other day, about how companies really need to streamline their application process, so that they get candidates interested enough to apply. Passive candidates especially do not take the time to fill anything out that they don't think is worth their time, right? And you want to value their time. And interviewing is a two-way street. You have to understand that the candidate is interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing them. And that's in every step of the process. If your application process sucks, that's a reflection on you. That's a reflection on your company, that your processes probably suck too. In the interview stage, if you're coming off as somebody that is a jerk and that they're not going to want to work with, that's a reflection on you and your company. They have other options. They're not going to want to work for a company that the interviewer gave them a poor experience. So you have to be very mindful of the fact that you're being interviewed, even if you're the interviewer.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think that point is very, it ties back to the previous point about it reflects the culture. How agile are you? If you claim to be, a team that operates in an agile way, and yet it takes you 6 weeks to run an interview process, then your actions speak a bit louder than your words in that sense, and it's definitely reflective of a company more broadly speaking. It is probably, speaking for all recruiters here, that that it's just the most frustrating and kind of ridiculous thing, that you would lose someone who you really want to hire because you can't manage a process fast enough to get them.
That's right.
And it still happens all the time. It's probably been, certainly in the UK recently, the last few months, the volume of jobs is slightly lower, so maybe you can get away. You've been able to get away with that a little bit more. We've seen processes really dragging, to be honest. And that's kind of understandable at the minute. But yeah, I think over the next few months, and generally, you just can't afford to run a process.
Another point I mentioned on LinkedIn too is assignments. Assignments are very popular here in the US, that they want to evaluate the candidate outside of the normal interview channel. And that's by giving them a take-home assignment that they can complete. And some companies do this really well. Some companies do this where it's a really huge endeavor. It's like a 3, 4, 5 hour project, takes these candidates all weekend because they want it to be perfect. And the amount of work that they put into it, it's like a real consulting assignment. This is what these companies should be paying a consultant to do for them. So to ask this of a candidate is, in my opinion, ridiculous. And if you are going to ask this, which I don't advise, if you are going to do it regardless, I think you should be paying candidates to do this because they are providing you with value, especially if you go back, don't hire this person, but you're like, you know what, some of these ideas are pretty good that we should probably be implementing. And I think that's the fear that a lot of candidates have too, that they don't want to be giving out their advice for free, especially if they're not even sure that they're going to be hired for the position. So you have to be considerate, you have to be mindful. I think that their assignments certainly serve their purpose, but this should be something at a very peripheral level. Maybe they can complete it in a half hour or an hour, something where they don't need all the information in order for it to be perfect, but you just want to see their thought process, how they think about things, how they would come into the role and think about things, rather than getting really into the nitty gritty of what they should be doing in this position, what their thoughts are on the role, and how they can improve things, because at that point you're getting into a real consulting assignment that they should be paid for, or you should really get a consultant for. So that's something that I find to be really challenging in the interview space, especially at more senior levels.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. There's a couple of things I thought of there. I think it's particularly relevant actually because there's been a lot of stuff doing the rounds in the past week over here, and I don't know, you might have seen it as well, about Brewdog doing that and stealing people's ideas.
Oh no, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, particularly both from creative agencies saying, we pitched this idea, they turned us down, and then they just went and did it anyway. But also applicants saying, they asked me for, like, their interview process asks for 3 ideas to increase social engagement, 3 for that type of role, or 3 ideas to that we could implement in terms of customer acquisition or retention, or various things, but just really thorough stuff that people are saying, look, they're just using this as an exercise to gather information. So
yeah, I would think the same. If I was interviewing, I would think absolutely the same, and I would be very hesitant to do an assignment like that. And again, that's a reflection on your company and your values and your process and your culture. So that's something that you need to think about.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was thinking, actually, as you were saying it, is we would often get clients asking us to get candidates to sign an NDA, not to talk about the job that they're interviewing for, but they would rarely, I've had it once or twice, candidates saying, well, I want them to sign an NDA before I present all of this information to them. And I think, maybe your idea of them getting paid is nice, but a bit of a utopia. But certainly NDAs for people presenting, like, on kind of
you want to protect your intellectual you know what I'm saying, but yes,
intellectual, your
IP, that's exactly right. And I think you should. I think you should, in these interviews, you need to stand up a little bit for yourself and push back if you feel uncomfortable doing anything. And I think it's totally valid. And a lot of times, I think that these companies just have very archaic interviewing processes that they just haven't thought through. It may not be a reflection completely on the organization itself. It may just be that they have not sat down together and come up with a better process, or even received feedback that their process is not so great. So I'd be hesitant to write a company off because of this, but it is a reflection. So if you are watching this and you're an employer that hires, think about your interview process, think about everyone involved, what's necessary, what's not, really how to identify top talent and how to do it quickly. I think you'll be most successful doing that.
Yeah. And another question for you there on hiring in terms of, I guess, your experience and thoughts on hiring from outside of kind of the obvious competitor set. How much do you have clients that you struggle with that with, or that that they kind of are very rigid on their kind of parameters of who they would look at and where they'll hire from?
Good question. I think the preference is always somebody coming from a competitor that understands the industry, that understands what they would be doing in the position. We talked in prior episodes about, I think that relevance is most important to companies that are hiring. So they're looking for somebody that can come in, hit the ground running, that already has the experience that they need. E-commerce moves so quickly that they're not able to do a lot of getting the person up to speed and training and development initially early on. So I think this is a big reason why companies look to hire from competitors directly, so they know that this person has a good understanding of what they'll be doing, what the needs are, and can come in and hit the ground running. But it is a struggle to get our candidates to consider individuals that come from other organizations, other verticals, other industries, and just hire smart people. I would love to see more of our clients just hire very smart people that can come in and make a difference right off the bat, that maybe they have different, because of their different experiences, they have a lot to bring to the table. They have ideas that just have not been brought up in meetings, because if companies only hire people that have worked in similar spaces and similar roles, you're getting the same thing every time. There's not a lot of innovation there. And I think if you're able to set that aside for a moment and think about hiring just very smart people that are good culture fits, that have worked on some really interesting stuff, I think bringing them into the organization, you have the opportunity to spark innovation, to bring new ideas to the table. And I don't think our clients are doing this enough. What about you?
Yeah, exactly the same. And I think, I would say there is a correlation between the clients that hire are most open-minded and hire from the broadest range of backgrounds, and the ones who are the most, as you say, the most innovative and do the most interesting work, are the most respected generally. So it's a bit chicken and egg. It's not that easy to say, oh, we just that. It's not just hiring those people, it's the fact that you're the type of organization that's willing to look at people from something completely different, already indicates you're of the right mindset, that you're probably going to be quite open to ideas and innovation. So, and then that just encourages that, and it spitballs. And obviously it's very relevant at the minute in terms of some of the conversations around diversity and how, more diverse teams do more creative work, are better at problem solving, better at innovation, all of that stuff. And I think that plays into that. It's that, it can become very labored, and actually, unfortunately, at the minute, I would say, because of in the UK, because of the number of people on the market and the general kind of, if people need to hire, they don't necessarily need to hire now. They kind of need someone in the next few months. There's a general risk aversion of, right, we're only going to hire someone who is just like absolutely ticks every single box, basically already does this job for someone who does the exact same thing as us, and then we'll just hire them, and then we don't have to worry or do anything, or there is absolutely zero risk. And unfortunately, actually at the minute, I'm probably seeing more of that than ever.
Agreed. Very good. So what have you seen in the UK with your clients? Give me some ideas of what you've seen in terms of best practices. What have been some clients that you've worked with where the interview process just went really smoothly, that they were able to attract the best talent, and the whole thing was just a really good experience?
I guess in terms of, maybe be a bit more general, but traits that some companies have that do that really well. I suppose first off, again, it goes back a bit to the point around the shaping of role, and really knowing that in depth. And companies who have written something really engaging job spec, or actually I would always say like a work for us document about the business as a whole, like what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve as a team. We've got clients who do every job, create something bespoke for the job that isn't just a job spec. So that already, people always respond really, really well to that. And it might have a bit around like, in our e-commerce team, this is the size of the business right now. These are our goals. This is what we're going to do. This is the innovation that we've got planned. Like, super interesting
One
straight
of, the,
away.
one of the questions I always ask clients on our initial call is, what can I tell these candidates that would get them excited about the opportunity? If they're currently happy in their position, if they're not actively looking, what can I tell them that will get them interested enough to at least hop on a call with me or with them to hear about the opportunity further? And I think that's a question too that these companies should be asking very early on, even in the job description creation process. They should embed that into the job description. Why? Here's why you'd want to work here. Here's why you'd want to work for us. Here's why this position is really cool. And most descriptions that I see are just very standard. This is what you'll be doing. This is what we require, and that's it. But I think that's good for, you know, some positions. Maybe that's enough. But if you really want to attract top talent, you need to be more thoughtful about everything you do. I keep saying that, but I really think in every step of the way, you need to be more thoughtful.
Yeah. And I would often say to clients, like, if you're going to spend time on something, spend it on building a one-page document about, you know, reasons about why you would want to, like you say, why you'd want to work here. We shouldn't need a job spec.
Yep.
Really, you know, often it's such a weird convention that people want to read it and then often will read it and really know nothing more than they already knew about the job, because it's probably loads of stuff that they already were aware of. So
yeah, I agree.
Job specs generally,
yeah, you're totally right. Most job descriptions are just what they originally think they may need, or what HR thinks even the team needs. But after speaking with candidates, that generally changes and is a more of a fluid document than anything else. And sometimes our clients will make the job description a catch-all, where they're looking, they throw everything in the job description as like their ideal profile, even though they know that they're not going to find the ideal person. But that discourages people from the opportunity itself, because I've had people that look at this job description that's a catch-all and they're like, Adam, we have 3 people in our company that are doing this one job right now. This is too much for one person. There's no way. I'm not even going to apply. The expectations are way off on this one. And I have to be like, no, they didn't mean for they didn't mean for this. They were just putting this in here as a catch-all, and you know, let's still get on a conversation. And I know this is a lot in here. So even in companies that try to be very thorough about this, it's too much. You don't want to put too much in the job description and scare the person away. Make it more of a conversation. You know, this is a job description is a fluid document that could be negotiated prior to you joining the company in terms of what the responsibilities will be, and even the title itself, and that sort of thing. So it's important not to be so rigid in the process.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I think definitely as the first point, just investing the time in that up front will help you attract better people for sure. And then it's just stuff around process. You know, it all adds up. The speed at which they respond to either, you know, to CVs you might have sent, or if candidates have got questions and say, actually, I'm interested, but I'd like to know a bit more. And, you know, a company's willing to come back and answer those pretty quickly, or jump on a quick call just to say, look, before you kind of fully commit to a first stage interview, let us just go through some of the questions that you've got to check that it's definitely the right fit.
Speed is critical.
That kind of
every step of the way.
Yeah.
I agree.
And again, something we've spoken about before, the level of hiring manager engagement throughout the process. So the best clients, you know, the clients who I think run the best processes are the ones where hiring managers are keen and willing to be involved and give up their time, and don't just kind of get involved right at the end of a process for a short amount of time and then never engage with the candidate again until they start the job. So it's about like those touch points along the way and saying, look, I'm happy to, you know, to meet you for a coffee somewhere between where we both work, if it's difficult for you to get here, or like the flexibility to understand that, again, it comes back to the point of, it's not all about how great we are and you should be desperate to come and work for us. So if you're not willing to come at the one time that I can give you in the next 2 weeks, I'm not interested. You know, best hiring managers are the ones who understand the need to be flexible.
Yeah, and I think the ones that follow up after too. So you have this long you have this long interview with the hiring manager, and there's a lot of information thrown at the candidate. And what I find most effective is when the hiring manager then says, "Okay, let's hop on a call in a day or two after you had time to digest all the information that we talked about. I want you to go back, think about it, make sure this is the right opportunity for you. And if you're still interested, let's hop on a call, quick 10, 15 minutes. I want to see what your thoughts are on what we spoke about. And if you have any questions, and we'll go from there." And I think that follow-up is really important, where you're making sure that they are that they're level set, that they have a good idea of what the role entails, that they understand what you're telling them, and you're making sure that they're still interested to continue on in the process. I think if you do that, you'll eliminate a lot of times candidates getting through the entire process and then end up taking another position elsewhere. You want to make sure that doesn't happen, and you're back to square one. I think it's a good candidate experience for everybody, just for the hiring manager to stay involved at every step in the process. Even if they're about to interview with other people, hiring manager should get on a call with them and prep them. It shouldn't just be you, me, HR. I think the hiring manager, if you really want to make it effective, is, hey, you're going to talk to Pete. He's our VP of marketing. Let me give you a little info on Pete and what he might be looking for. That is a good candidate experience.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, good. One of the other things that we talked about too is that e-commerce talent really wants to be in a place where they are growing and they're learning, and they're investing in their ability to do so. So if companies can offer benefits around this, around training and development, leadership development, there's a lot of ways now that they could do that through online courses, through webinars, through conferences. I think that there are not enough companies that value this. They talk about salary, they talk about health benefits, they talk about maybe flexible work time, they talk about some of the more standard benefits, but not enough of our clients, I don't know about you, are talking about training and development opportunities. And I think this is where they could have a really big competitive advantage, where if some company is like, okay, one of the benefits that we offer is that we give all of our employees $1,000 a year that they can use to anything they want, as long as it's learning and development related. They can go to conferences, they can do online seminars, they can do whatever they want just to increase their knowledge base around e-commerce. And that's a lot of fun for the candidate, for the person in this role, and it's beneficial to the company as well. And it's a really good tool for attraction and retention.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and actually, there's very few of our clients that it's part of the.
I don't know why it seems offer. So easy to do. Yeah,
and a lot of them would probably have access to that kind of training. Like the team overall or the division will have a budget for training and development, but it's not kind of sold in such a way that we do have some clients where, as you say, it's a figure per person per year, or a couple of days in addition to your holiday a year to go and do whatever you want from a personal development perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a cracking benefit, I think.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer to me. Good. All right. Well, hopefully we gave you guys some good ideas. If you really want to attract top e-commerce talent to your organization, to your open positions, you'll think about this, implement it, and I think you'll be successful. Let Andy and I know if you have any questions at all after this video. We'd love to help you in landing your next role, in hiring top e-commerce talent. Let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Can't add anything to that. We'll try and be a bit more consistent. We've got a couple planned over the next few weeks. So yeah, keep an eye out and keep watching.
Very good. Andy, appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Adam.
All right. Bye, my friend.
Bye.